Well, I am super excited. Today we start the conversion of our battery system from AGM to lithium-ion batteries. Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Marie.
10 years ago, we bought a broken down trawler for $4,000.
And nothing worked, not even the kitchen sink.
After a lot of hard work and help from our friends and family, we moved aboard Elixir full time. And now we are cruising this old boat while the work and fun continues.
So subscribe and give us a like and come along with us, cruising this old boat.
The reason I'm excited about this is how it's going to change the way we boat. As you all know, we recently installed solar panels, and that has made a drastic difference. The one problem that remains is that once the sun goes down in the evening, the solar panels quit charging. And once they quit charging, those batteries start to drain. They can't make it until the next morning. They'll die. So every night I have to kick the generator in for 1 to 2 hours to bring the level up enough to make it to the next morning. I'd like to get rid of that. I'd like to quit having to run my generator when I got solar panels that are just sitting there sleeping all day because they've already charged the batteries up to 100%. The answer to that is lithium-ion batteries. My current battery bank, all combined, it's 6 golf cart batteries, and you combine them into 3 pairs, and that gives me about 330 amp hours of battery capacity. The problem with wet cell, AGM, the old technology, is that you can only use 50% of that. So that takes me down to 160 something, whatever, a little over 150 amps of usable battery capacity. And then you add on top of that, when you're on the hook and use your generator to charge the batteries, you don't really want to run your generator to charge them up to 100%. So generally they say about 80%. After that, it gets too expensive to pay for the fuel to try to charge the batteries up above that. So now you're down to 100 amps. So you got this big battery bank and you got 100 amp hours of usable space. With lithium-ion batteries, each one of these is 300 amps. I've got 2 of them, so that's 600 amps. Now technically, it's my understanding you could drain these down to 0, but really they recommend 10, 20% is all you want to go down to. But if we say 10%, that's still 500, and yeah, it's a bunch of amps. so I'm happy with that. So with these batteries, we could go around 24 hours without a charge. So I charge these up to 100%. I can go 24 hours before I have to worry about charging them again. What that means is once the solar panels charge these up to 100% during the daytime, when the sun sets, I don't have to worry about it. They will stay charged until the sun comes back up the next day and starts recharging them. So that's great. Another benefit of the lithium ion is they charge faster than the AGMs I currently have. Another benefit, there's just benefit after benefit after benefit of going to lithium ion. Another benefit is the size. These 2 batteries have far more capacity than what the 6 batteries I have down there are. And each of those 6 batteries weigh more than one of these. Each one of those weighs more than one of these. So I'm going to have a lighter weight, which will give me better fuel economy when I'm traveling down the river. I only have 2 batteries, basically in the same footprint as each one of those, so I'm reducing my footprint. You see that these are Epoch batteries, and I did a lot of research before I decided what battery to go with. And I also consulted with Alan, who's got his own channel on YouTube called MV Intrigue Trawler DIY, and it's a great channel. I encourage you to go check it out. he does in-depth dives, so it's a really good channel if you really want to understand what's going on. I've been watching this channel for a long time, and so I reached out to Alan and I said, what do you recommend? I knew he did some deep dives on Epoch, so I knew he kind of backed Epoch, but my own research had led me to Epoch as well. And of course he said Epoch is the way to go. They're quality batteries. They're not cheap batteries, but I mean cheap as in cheap quality, because they are not as expensive as some other batteries you can get. They're actually economical batteries, but of high quality. So that's great for me. I don't like to spend money, but I want quality. A lot of the sites I went to that compared different batteries all came to the conclusion Epoch is one of the best out there, not only for their capacity per dollar, but also the weight per capacity, also for safety. I found one website where a guy, or a YouTube channel where a guy, I don't remember the name of it, but he just puts batteries to the test. And so, a lot of batteries claim they have overcurrent protection. So he would intentionally drive too much current into the battery and see if they would even go offline, and if so, how fast would they go offline, because that can make a difference. Even though they will eventually trip, if they catch on fire before they trip, that doesn't do you a whole lot of good on your boat. So he wanted to see how fast they trip. Short circuit protection, over temp protection, all those things that different batteries will claim they do, he put them to the test to see if they would do it. And time after time, all the things he was testing, he kept finding that Epoch was about one of the only ones that lived up to what they said. When they said they had, short circuit protection, it shut down like that. So they lived up to what they claim, and that's good. They also have an 11-year warranty, which is nice. Just everything I did brought me back to Epoch batteries, and Alan confirmed that when I talked with him. Fair disclosure, I think Alan actually works for Epoch. If you have questions and you contact Epoch with a question about their battery for your boat, he's the guy that will answer your question. So he really knows his stuff. So I talked to him about my system and how I had it set up, and he looked at it and came back to me and said, here's some changes you need to make your system work better. And I really appreciate that. So I want to give a shout out to Alan, MV Intrigue, Trawler DIY. We're going to try to follow his advice the best I understand it, because I'm not as smart as him, and we'll see what we can do. So thank you again, Alan. And the first thing we got to do based on his advice is my current system, my alternator charges the house bank. So when I'm traveling down the river, the current from the alternator charges my house bank and not my start battery. I do have a dedicated start battery for the engine. That battery is charged whenever I run the generator. The generator supplies a battery charger that charges my Davit battery, my start battery for the main engine. So Alan has suggested that I alter that and have the alternator charge the start battery and not the house bank, because the solar panels are going to be charging the house bank. If I'm plugged in, I've got a inverter charger that will be charging the house bank, and I'm also going to be installing, with his advice, a DC to DC charger, so that once the alternator does charge up the start battery, then it will take and also charge up my house bank. So that's a win-win for everything. So we're going to get started. What I want to do for this conversion, because I am on the hook right now, I'm normally on the hook. We rarely go into marinas and plug in. So as soon as I unhook my current house bank, I lose all power, which includes my refrigerator and other essential things like that bilge pump that keeps kicking in, to make sure things are working. So we're going to kind of do this in maybe not the most fluid way of a conversion, but that's because I want to get everything done that I can get done before I unhook the old batteries. Because once I unhook them, it's going to take me a while to get them out. I'm old and they're heavy, and I'm going to have to do some alterations to the box that they're in to get these new ones to fit. And so I'm going to be without power for a little bit of a while. So I want to make that as short a time period as possible. So the first thing we're going to do is change that alternator situation, and we're going to reroute the wires to have the alternator charge the start battery and not the house bank. So let's get to it. And we're going to put on the new cable, a shorter one, to go from the alternator to the start battery, which is just a couple feet away. So now we need to hook the other side of that cable to go to the battery. Now, I could just hook it up to the positive side of the battery, but then I've got wires going across my stringer. I've already got a couple. I don't like more. I'm trying to get rid of the ones going across my stringer. If you look at the starter, that cable is effectively, those 2 points are effectively the same electrically. They're the same spot. So instead of running across my stringer to the positive of the battery, I'm just going to hook it onto the starter motor, and that'll be the same thing. All right, so the alternator is now wired to the start battery. So whenever the engine is running, it will be charging the start battery, and it's totally separate from the house bank. So now onto the house bank, switching it over to the lithiums. All right, I've done everything I can before I have to disconnect the batteries. I've run wires, although I haven't hooked them up. I've got them run to save me some time. Now, before you start messing with your battery bank, you want to shut off the solar panels that are charging them. If you're plugged into the dock, you also want to shut off your battery charger. As I've said, I'm on the hook. So the only power going to my batteries is from the solar panels. So I need to shut that off to make sure I don't get electrocuted when I go messing with the wires. Next, I'm going to disconnect the negative wire to the battery bank, and that will disconnect the batteries from ground. That way, when I mess with the hot wires, there's no risk of me getting electrocuted. We are in the dark. Clock's ticking. I got all the old batteries out, but the battery case, which I'd built specifically for those batteries, was a little bit too small. So I'm gonna have to cut it out, cut the front wall out, just big enough to slide the battery in, and I think we'll be okay. All right, I got the holes cut out, and I went ahead and put in the first lithium on the starter side. Fit in just perfectly. And I gotta tell you, I'm flat out exhausted pulling all these batteries out. But even as tired as I am from pulling those AGMs out, when I picked up the lithium battery, I had no problem picking it up. The AGMs I can barely move at this point. I'm so tired. But the lithium, I just picked it up and put it down in there. It's like it was nothing. So that's amazing. All right, I got the batteries all wired up. So the next step is to install this new shunt. This is a Victron Smart Shunt. I had a shunt on there already. I've removed it when I removed the batteries. But this one's better. It's a smart shunt. It more accurately reads than the shunt that I had before, and it Bluetooths. So I can see what's going on my phone. All right, the first thing you want to hook up is the battery side. And the only cable that should go to that is the cable going to the negative of the battery bank. And no other cables should go to the negative of the battery bank. This is the only cable. Goes from the battery side of the shunt to the negative of the battery bank, and that's it. All right, next you want to hook up the load side of your shunt. This is where everything on your boat, the ground eventually connects to this if it's running off your house bank. Now the easiest way to do that, like I did, is this cable goes to a bus bar up above here. And that way you got plenty of terminals to hook all the grounds up to, and then just one cable comes over your shunt. All right, the last step is to plug the RJ12 cable into the back of your monitor. Let's plug that cable in. And at that point, your monitor should turn on. You press any button, it goes into the program mode. So that's the next step, is to program it to your batteries. Now we could go ahead and set up the monitor, the smart shunt, there on the display unit, but it's a lot easier to do it on your Bluetooth on your telephone. So that's what we're going to do. I think I have everything hooked up to get power back to the boat. There's still work I have to do, but it's starting to get dark outside. I need to get power on. So I'm gonna go ahead and power up the battery, and let's hope it works. It works. We have power. Before I do too much, I'm gonna go up and reset the parameters on my battery charger, inverter charger. It's a Magnum. We have a Magnum. We have a Magnum inverter charger. It's lack of a better word, it's an older one. It's not that old, but it's pre-lithium batteries being in the mainstream, so it doesn't have any just press the button for lithium batteries. So I contacted the company, and they told me what numbers to dial it into using the other. So you have, wet cell or lead acid, AGM, and then they have an other. So I'm gonna press other and then put in the values they told me to. So the last step is to install a DC to DC converter, And what this does is, as the alternator is charging the start battery for the engine, once it is charged up, which usually doesn't take very long to recharge a start battery, then this starts taking the electricity from the alternator and using that to charge the new lithium bank that we just put in. So it sends 50 amps through to the lithium batteries, and that will help supplement what the solar panels are doing. So anytime you're traveling down the river, going from point A to point B, this will be helping to charge your batteries and topping them off. Ideally, you want this as close as possible to the start battery on your engine. But if you can't do that, if it's not practicable, you can install it somewhere else, and you just have some amount of power loss. All right, we now have our DC to DC charger installed. Let's check it out and see how it works. So you can see here that the charger is not putting anything out. That's because our engine is not running right now. You can also see the solar panels are supplying some amount of charge to our Epoch batteries. Let's go ahead and kick the engine in and you can see the difference. Alright, so you can see that the DC to DC charger is putting almost 50 amps into the batteries. You can also see that the batteries are now being charged versus discharged. Before I tell you the results of our Epoch install, I would be remiss if I did not mention that they are Bluetooth capable. The Epoch 300 amp hour batteries that I got have Bluetooth built into them. And that is really cool that we can just sit on our couch and look at the state of our batteries and see how they're doing. Not only how many amp hours they have in them, what voltage they're at, but also are they being charged or discharged. Well, we've had a few weeks to test out our Epoch batteries, and I got to tell you, we are loving it. We don't have to start the generator at night anymore. We don't have to worry about waking up early in the morning the next day to run the generator. These batteries last for quite a while before they lose their charge, and generally the solar panel is going to kick in and charge them, and we don't have to worry about it. So it's pretty awesome. We're not running the generator near as much as we used to. We've also done some testing, and there's a lot of things that if we were going to use it, we had to turn the generator on just to use that appliance. For instance, our microwave. We could get away with about 30 seconds. After that, the old batteries couldn't handle the continuous discharge. So the Epoch batteries handle it like a champ. We can cook in the microwave all we want. We don't worry about it. We can also use our air fryer without turning on the generator. We can use our toaster without turning on the generator. We can use our blender without turning on the generator. The list goes on and on and on. We haven't found anything that those Epoch batteries won't run, including our water maker. Now, although that they will run the water maker, we do still turn the generator on for the water maker because we have to run it for so long. It puts on such a big drain on the batteries that we have to end up running the generator somewhere along the day anyway, just to recharge the batteries from how much the water maker discharged it. So we go ahead and just run the generator while we're running the water maker. But if push come to shove and we needed to, it's good to know that we can run the water maker on the batteries. So we are just really pleased. Everything's working out great. And that's it. Our Epoch batteries are now installed and happily being used. Thanks for watching.